Hey everyone, welcome to the KE Report, another daily editorial where we're going to focus on equity markets, US markets that continue to show a lot of strength and some interesting rotation that's happening to kick off this week. We'll also get into a couple resource sectors, mostly around uranium and nuclear, as well as talk cryptocurrencies as Bitcoin just hit that $100,000 level. We are chatting with T.G. Watkins, Director of Stocks at Simpler Trading, also editor of the Profit Pilot website, which I will link to in the show notes. TG, take us back through a little bit of a recap, maybe over the last month, in terms of what you've seen within the market concentration, where money is flowing, how it's continued to push these markets to all-time highs almost across the board in a lot of different sectors ever since the election. What have we seen here, TG?
Yeah, this is going to be kind of a fun recap, and hopefully, if your audience listening, they can take a look at some charts as I'm talking this through, because it's been all over the place, but it's been fairly consistent understandable as to what's been happening, and so it's a little bit like a soap opera. We kind of have to tell the story of what the market's been doing for the last few weeks. Going into the election, the market pulled back, a little jittery. People did know uncertainty about that, so the market dropped down to SPX daily 50. And then we got the election results, and the market just absolutely ripped. We saw that, gap up and run for a few days. People have been saying, okay, Trump, all that kind of stuff, let's go. Would like to make note that for as many people as maybe they're thinking this is Trump and political, just remember back in 2020, November 7th, the market also exploded and the small caps ripped when Joe Biden got elected. So I think in this case, it's more about they just now know who the administration is and what they're about, and so we can work with that. So in both cases, the market popped. And then, despite the market running up the way it did after the election, I kind of thought it was going to hold a little bit more. I knew there was a big gap. I knew that we had to get that fixed, but I thought we were going to kind of do a bull flag. Instead, it was kind of like a little bit of a hangover, and they brought it all the way back down to basically the gap. So if you guys saw where we gapped up after the election, they brought it right to there, which also happened to be the daily 21 EMA and the previous all-time high. So again, this kind of makes sense. It found support, and then we rallied into Thanksgiving, had some really great moves into Thanksgiving. And then basically, given that it's a holiday week, shortened week, traders are trying to go on vacation, the market's doing well. They basically said, hey, let's all behave, let's play nice, let's keep the market up and not do too much here. And that was kind of the message out there, basically the unwritten rule of like, hey, let's just have a good vacation. And then amazingly, they decided to rip the market up on the day after Thanksgiving. And my guess is, with the market already being up like this and whatever, and everyone's feeling good, probably the big funds, hedge funds said, hey, let's boost this thing so that for the last day of the month, we get our good numbers, everything's looking nice, and we can deal with this later in December. So today, we now have the mega caps up, but basically the rest of the market is pulling back. And I think that it's two things. It's a little bit of cover, but I also think that the big players are looking at the small caps and some of these names that have just gone through the roof. I mean, I have 4 trades alone that we've taken in just stock that have gone over 100%, Reddit being my biggest at 160% or something like that. And we've had a lot of names just going straight up. And so they're taking their profits. They're moving out of those small caps for now. They're going to bring them back down, and then they're bringing them into the FANG stocks, the mega caps, because those mega caps actually have been holding and going sideways while the rest of these names were going bonkers. So we're just seeing a huge rotation right now, and it would be great, I think, if they actually pulled the market back a little bit sometime this week or so in order to then build us some room in order to go higher into the end of the year. And we'll just have to see how they do it. Maybe they take the FANG stocks a bit higher into the end of the year because those are the ones that really show good numbers for them, and they want to show good window dressing by the end of the year.
Yeah, TG, it makes a lot of sense that there'd be some rotation out of the small and mid cap stocks that have been just blazing higher. Take some of those profits, ring the register, put them into the safer big techs, mega cap stocks, which have kind of been trending sideways, not doing much compared to the smaller stocks. But then if the markets do pull back, what kind of support levels will you be looking for in, let's say, the small and the mid cap stocks to where you would be enticed to pull money back out of the big big stocks and put it back into the smaller stocks?
Well, it's really going to be a case-by-case situation when you look at these individual stocks, because I have so many names that I'm trading right now, which kind of tells you how great this market is. But we took profits on Tuesday or Wednesday of last week because, again, they were just straight up. Like, this is unsustainable. And so we cashed in a lot of really great names. We still have positions, but took sizable profits on them. And, I don't know, daily 21s, maybe, I don't know if hourly 50s, maybe below that. Depends on what they're going to have to do with this. Either they pull them back or they flag them. I'm not entirely sure. So that's why you have to kind of look at your individual tickers. But as far as the market goes today, I would love to see the S&P pull back to its hourly 50, which right now in the SPX is maybe something around 59.90 by the time it gets to there. And if you actually look at the NASDAQ, it's at its all-time highs right now from last week. So I think we're seeing a little bit of a double top there. Again, it would make sense to rest a little bit in this spot. And then, hey, I think we can continue marching higher. This market's looking great overall.
One of the big takeaways I've had talking with UTG over the last year at least now is that, look, this market has been very strong. It's been a time to truly be invested in this market. I know you can take some long short strategies, but mostly being long the right sectors, and it's been a wide range of sectors, you have done pretty well. What does that mean for your trading? I know as an active trader, you want to be active, but just seems like we've been in this environment where money on the sidelines is just getting passed by.
Yeah, so what it means for me is we're seeing the small caps come out of hibernation. That's kind of the way I've been phrasing it for my subscribers and people I talk to. You can look at names like Toast. You can look at AFRM. Heck, you can even look at Roblox. A lot of these names, ever since the 2020 or 2021 bubble that got popped, these names have gone straight down over 2021. And then most of them just went sideways. If you look at a monthly, weekly time frame, they went sideways for a year or two, something like that. And they're just biding their time, waiting for a more favorable environment. And that more favorable environment is right now. Inflation's coming down, interest rates are coming down. We have our new administration politically. The market knows where we're going and what's happening, and they're happy about it. We're, it's supposed to be pro-growth with Trump and all that kind of stuff. Back in 2020 when we had Biden, we had the bazooka, the money bazooka from Powell. So a little bit different story. But now we're seeing things like Roblox, which has been going sideways for over a year, almost two. They're starting to break out on monthly and weekly timeframes. You can look at HNST and you can see these things. They just look at these on the monthly time frame. You can see that they all were getting just drained of money over the last couple years. And then for the last year, they kind of popped up, flagged sideways, and now they're exploding. And so this is what I'm seeing out there. They're coming out of hibernation. They're waking up. And for something like HNST, we got in at $3.50. So we made 140% on this thing. Yeah, it's a good place to take some profits. And because it's just so far outside of any of my metrics, they're gonna have to bring this thing in. And that's great. So whenever this thing dips and comes back down, I have plenty of dry powder ready to go and ready to buy the dip whenever that happens. And that's how we just kind of trade these things back and forth and we watch what's going around. And on a day like today, when some of these small caps are getting hit, like ACHR and JOBY, kind of the space area, aero defense, we're seeing FNGU and the FANG stocks up. Like Apple's making new all-time highs right now. And so it's pretty obvious that the rotation's happening.
Well, TG, let's shift our focus over to the cryptoverse because it's hard to ignore the move up to basically 100,000. Bitcoin, I think, got up to 99,834.81. So almost there, knocking on 100,000, triple-digit Bitcoin. A six-digit Bitcoin. So with that in mind, there's a lot of speculative funds also rotating out of general equities into the cryptoverse. Is it sustainable? Are we due for a pullback? Can it keep blasting higher, or is this a moment of caution for the sector?
Well, of course, I got to say Bitcoin can do anything because it is pretty crazy. But if we're going to be if it's going to try and follow the typical rules, I would say that right now, Bitcoin is a little overbought. It's kind of this combination between, yes, it went straight up over the last month, and it also hit 100,000. So between just being overbought and then right at this big round number, everyone's, 100,000. It makes a lot of sense that the media is probably going to be touting 100,000. You're going to get some amateur buyers that come in, oh my God, Bitcoin 100,000, I got to get it. And then of course they're going to sell it to them, and they're going to bring the market down on it. They're going to flag it. They're going to probably get shake out the weak hands, give people cold feet. we're just going to have to be patient, kind of like the small caps, to see what do they want to do about this. As maybe an example, if you looked at Coinbase, you can see it had a straight up move and it's been going sideways for the last couple weeks. It would be great if Bitcoin did that. If they could just make Bitcoin go sideways to slightly down, shake out the weak hands, any of the short-term traders, and then they find support and then move it back up. That would be totally normal, very perfect, and I think it would make a lot of sense. And it would be healthier for Bitcoin because the more that any of these stocks, including Bitcoin, just go up and up and up, they become unstable and unsustainable. So if we could just buy some time here, I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, an almost 40% move in November for Bitcoin. Understandably so. It's a little overbought and might have gotten a little ahead of itself, but hey, we're back at this magical $100,000 level. TG, what other stocks, what other coins do you look at within the cryptocurrency sector that give you a bit of a heads up there in terms of what investor interest is? You already mentioned one earlier, but is there a certain type of coin, a certain type of stock that you think can lead the Bitcoin price more so?
Yeah, so anybody who's listening, get your pen and paper out and you guys can listen to the recording, but I'll go through a quick list here. Of course, you can look at Ethereum. Ethereum is, moving well. I think it's looking great, but it too is a little extended and kind of running into some resistance. But sure, Ethereum's going to keep going. Now, as far as the Bitcoin miners, so if you're asking for stock, these are really all that I look at because I need things that I can see on my charts. I can only see Bitcoin, I can only see Ethereum as far as coins go. I did hear some good news about Ripple, but I can't visualize, I can't see Ripple on any of my charts, and so I don't trade it. As far as the miners, not all of them are created equally. Some are doing better than others, and it's going to be kind of the Wild West as far as how they move. I do like WULF, which is Wolf. A lot of these things, there's massive amounts of volume that has been coming into them for the last several months. And again, they look like the small caps. They look like they've been in a hibernation for the last, I don't know, year or two, and they're starting to come out of hibernation. So Wolf looks good. Hut actually has kind of come back from the dead and actually turned into one of the leaders. Some of these are a little extended. They're a little up there, so just kind of beware of where you buy. But generally speaking, these things are really starting to come alive again. You have Cypher, CIFR. Again, this one actually kind of looks a lot like Wolf. You have Irene, IREN. This thing looking great too. It just had earnings and jumped up 2 days on earnings, so looking solid. Mara, which used to be one of the big leaders, has also started to kind of come back from being pretty idle and looking generally good. And then CLSK, that's another one. It's got a lot of baggage overhead that it has to get through, so it might take a little bit longer to work. And then you have Riot, and that one's another one that's, a lot of these things kind of got hit over the last year and they're starting to come back. So yeah, just be willing to let these things move around, but yeah, the whole sector is looking like it's trying to kind of come back alive. And I'm sure it's going to also depend on how quickly Bitcoin can get past 100,000. So right now, I think if you watch these things settle in a little bit, it could be a good buying opportunity if you can find some low spots as they chill out for a while.
When you look at I don't know if you look at the valuations of the crypto miners, but some of them are just off the chain. When you look at where they move, where they drop to during pullbacks and where they run to during surges higher, it seems to be a disconnect as far as even how to value these things. So I'm sure that it probably helps to just look at the funnel of technical analysis and look at the charts. Are there any charts in the Bitcoin miners that have you concerned about the levels they're at? Or are there any charts out of those Bitcoin miners that you think show relative strength where it could keep running?
The names that I just went over, I think are the best that I have. I mean, my crypto name list is probably twice that, but you got a lot of fly by night kind of names, and who knows what their balance sheet is, and some of them it's the tickers just look like crap, and maybe you don't have a lot of volume, and maybe they're in China, stuff like that. So I've really, for myself, I've kind of isolated to those, I think 6 or 7 that are everybody knows about them. They do well. They have a ton of volume, and the charts are looking pretty good. I do like things like Cypher, Wolf, and Irene because those charts really never got hit too badly. But then you can see something like Mara and Riot and Hut. They really did have to handle a lot of garbage over the last year or so. As far as these things up, yeah, they've been up. They really rallied into when Bitcoin was going to 100,000, and now that Bitcoin's at 100,000, I'm kind of thinking some of these things, these crypto miners are going to probably take a breather and either bull flag or maybe pull back a little bit and consolidate and probably catch their breath along with Bitcoin catching their breath. Oh, and don't let me forget coin. I don't think of coin as a Bitcoin miner, but coin as an exchange is going to be in this area. And of course, I think coin is going to do well also.
So switching focus, just one more time over to the resource commodity sector, then TG. Look, we talk a lot about precious metals. Those have been relatively slow right now. The stocks are continuing to fade a little bit, but there continues to be some positive stories in some of the energy sectors. So anything on your radar, chart-wise, for any of the commodity sectors?
Well, we talked about uranium. You got URA and URNM and CCJ. And the same thing, I think that these names will go higher. I think uranium is now a big thing, especially with nuclear and having to power AI and power crypto coins and all that stuff. So we're really having to figure that out. And Microsoft and Amazon and who knows who else is really getting into the nuclear space because they have to power their companies. So yeah, I absolutely think that these things are going to go higher. Now, if you look at URA, it's bull flagging basically right below its all-time high. I'm sure it's going to just take some time and eventually it'll go higher. URNM, we were just discussing this one too. Last time that we all spoke, I said I was expecting it to pull back into the daily 50. It's done that, but now it's kind of wedged between the daily 50 and the daily 200. So really, it's just kind of a matter of how long do these want to go sideways before they hopefully go higher, because I kind of lean towards them being higher. I don't know why they wouldn't. And so I think it's in a good holding pattern until something else happens that they then move higher. Then you can look at the actual nuclear stocks like SMR. These things have been terrific movers. It's probably a little challenging to buy something like SMR right here. I mean, it really has just really had a big move, and I don't know if this is the spot to buy it. But then you can look at something like OKLO. It has at least come down and it has been flagging sideways. Now, I don't know, again, if this is quite ready to move up from this flag sideways, but at least it's showing that it's holding this level and waiting for whatever support it wants before it goes higher. So I'd watch that one. And then kind of pulling up the rear is the run to the litter is NNE, and this is the one we've been trading. We've been making some good money on it. They just actually had a secondary offering last week, which dropped it, but it's since held, and it's really just kind of navigating its previous all-time high at about $30. And if it can kind of just hold in here and then eventually find support and move up, I think this also has a good future in front of it, and those are the things I'm looking at.
Well, TJ, I appreciate you breaking down both the uranium ETFs and then three of the probably most widely followed small modular reactor stocks. I'm going to throw one more at you. We didn't tell you about this before we recorded, but it's LEU, it's Centrus, and they're important because they're a uranium enricher. There's very few companies that actually take the uranium from the mining companies and enrich it into the fuel for the reactors, and they've had a pretty big rip. When you look at a chart like LEU, any takeaways?
Yeah, I actually forgot about that one too. It is on my watch list. I just, it's not on my top of mind. It too definitely ripped. It had a huge move, but it's kind of the same thing with all these small caps and crypto coins that they all just went through the roof over the last few weeks, couple months, and they all needed to take breathers. In fact, if you actually look at LEU, it's really giving a good example of kind of what we might want to expect from some of these small caps. They get overbought, they get stretched, and basically they just kind of pull back into support. And in case LEU, it looks like the daily 50 and the weekly 21 EMA have been that support, and now they're back up and sideways. And I would say probably somewhere around here, if it can hold this general level of, I don't know, 80-ish, and eventually find support and move up, I would say, yeah, that looks great. It's moved up, it's pulled back, it's finding its comfort zone, and now I'd be watching for the next time it wants to continue upward.
All right. TG will wrap it up here. Again, TG Watkins, Director of Stocks over at Simpler Trading, also editor of the Profit Pilot website. Click that link in the show notes. Sounds like there's still a lot of opportunities out there, TG. You do an excellent job of finding stocks, individual ticker symbols, and even broad sectors that are doing well and riding those waves. Again, this is a market where it seems like you shouldn't be fighting the trend in some of these and just enjoying some of the gains and taking profits when you do have them. TG, as always, thanks for your time. Have a great rest of your week.